Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I'm really excited, okay, because we got a great guest today. And we have on the phone Kenneth Cole. Kenneth Cole, the fashion designer. Are you there, Kenneth? Michael Blutridge, are you there? Danny, do we have the guest?
Hi, Ed. Hi, Ed.
Kenneth Cole, are you there?
I see you've been reading, sir.
I love the book, man. We have on the phone Michael. How do I pronounce this? Blutridge?
Blutrick.
Blutrick.
Blue like the color blue.
Michael Blutrick, and he was the guy who started Scores in Manhattan. The book is called Scores: How I Opened the Hottest Strip Club in New York City. It was extorted out of millions and made the biggest mafia case in history. Michael, fascinating book. I really, really love it. Tell us about yourself. Who is Michael Blutrick?
Well, I started out as a young guy in Brooklyn. loved my life. I wound up going to the public school system in New York City, and went to college at NYU and went to law school at Georgetown, and came out and became a lawyer, and was a successful lawyer for a long period of time, and wound up being involved in some Brooklyn politics, and after that was over with, actually moved on to lots of entrepreneurial pursuits. I owned restaurants. I owned comedy clubs with Al Lewis. If you might remember him from the Munsters.
Sure, I know exactly what you're talking about on Staten Island.
He played Grandpa. Had a restaurant in the Village. Had comedy clubs with him, and owned discos in that sort of in the same '80s period, and finally moved on to having this crazy experience with being a gay man in the closet, opening the hottest club in probably the history of New York, or the world, perhaps.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so famous. But now that's interesting, because I just read the whole book, and I didn't realize at the time you owned Scores, you were in the closet.
Yeah, well, it kind of was that kind of time, Ed.
Yeah.
It I was involved. My law partner for many years was the epidemic of AIDS had just hit. People weren't going to restaurants for fear of intermingling with gay people. And I'm not proud of the fact that I was in the closet. But you also have to go back a lot more years, Ed, to tell you the truth, because when I grew up, there wasn't even a word gay. Okay? There were no gay people on television. There were no. When I went to college, there were no gay clubs. There was no internet. I actually spent most of my life believing that I was like the only gay guy in the world, the only person who had feelings for the opposite sex. So it was a very difficult thing for me to come to grips with all of this, and you compromise in these circumstances. You have some friends and you're honest with them, but for the most part you hold yourself out to the world. And when I was opening Scores, I got inveigled into opening Scores by two clients, and they were absolutely convinced that if we were the first to open an upscale strip bar giving lap dances to customers, that we would then be the hottest thing that ever happened. And I was very resistive of it, because I think you'll remember in those days, just around that time in late 80s, early 90s, all of the strip bars in Manhattan were in Times Square. They were horror show places.
Yeah.
They were terrible, blacked out places. Nobody would go there. No one with money would go there because they'd be fearful of getting mugged. And so there were no strip bars in New York City. And these two people had tried for years to raise money to open an upscale strip bar, and they went nowhere with that. They couldn't get any place doing that. So they came to me because of political contacts, because of being a lawyer, having a Park Avenue law firm, and wanted me to help them open this strip bar. And you can't believe what happened. This was the craziest thing in the world.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions first. How old are you now?
I can't tell you that. It's my deepest, darkest secret. But I'm older than you think.
Okay, because I'm 54. I guess I'm going to be 55 actually in September, and I grew up in New York, and there was definitely a lot of homophobia.
Yeah, we're kind of close.
Okay, well then good. Okay, good.
We're kind of close to it.
And there was a great deal of homophobia back in New York, back in those days, around the times when Scores opened. But like you said, there was nothing like it in New York, but they did have big fancy clubs like that down in Florida, in Vegas. They had a Crazy Horse too, which was pretty
exactly. You just put your finger on it. And the first thing that we discovered, which was extraordinary to my mind, and nobody knows this. At the time that we opened Scores, I mean, you know it because you read the book.
Yeah.
But at the time we opened Scores, lap dancing was illegal in New York. It was legal in Mississippi. It was legal in Alabama. It was legal in Florida. It was legal all over the country. New York City had the most restrictive nudity laws in the country.
That's right. The dances,
and those laws were designed to stop lap dancing.
Because on Staten Island we had that well-known place, historical place called the Black Garter. Okay, was well known throughout history. And so the girls had to be like on the other side of the bar, but they could kind of like reach over. But there was a bar between you and the girls, not like in Florida and stuff. They come and sit on your lap.
It was worse than that. I mean, because people were violating the law, and it was only when scores, was so big and so, impressive that the government decided to do something about it. But the law at the time was you had to wear a pasty.
Right.
Because dancers or the entertainer's nipple had to be covered with an opaque substance. And an opaque substance was interpreted by the government to mean cloth. So it was a pasty. So now, number one, nobody wants a lap dance with a pasty rubbing against them. Number two, they had to be 8 inches, 16 inches in the air and 6 feet from a customer. So the most you could hope for in the New York law was a hair shower from a very long-haired woman. So it was very problematical. And in fact, the night we opened scores, the first night we were open, the liquor authority came and gave us a summons to close us for violating the opaque substance rule. They left alone the other rule about the distance and the height, but they came and gave us a summons to close us for not having nipples covered by opaque substances. And we knew it was coming, and we decided that we were going to take on the law.
Well, tell them how you did that. You went and you hired a chemist down, like I think in North Carolina. Yeah.
We hired a guy from the North Carolina University textile division. I had been a textile lawyer for a long time too, so I knew this guy. He was a great guy. And I asked him, "Are there actually tests if something is opaque?" And he looked at me like I was an idiot. Yes, absolutely. There was a test for being opaque. So we had come up with this idea that we would paint on Broadway. This is what they used on Broadway, Ed. Yeah. They would paint the woman's nipples with a latex paint, and then a colorist would color the paint, the latex, once it was dried, to look exactly the same color as the woman's real nipple, or areola, as it says in the law. And so you really couldn't tell. It was the most amazing thing. If you take a woman and you take off you take off her top and you paint her nipple with this latex paint and you color it with a professional colorist, she looks naked. So we decided that this is the way we would go. And in fact, the night we were open, that first night that we got the summons, every girl in the place was covered with latex paint. And so we still got the summons. The guy had no interest in talking to us. He just dropped it off. And so we took it on, and when the tests came back from North Carolina, the verdict was that our latex paint was more opaque than a Brooks Brothers shirt. So we were very, very confident. And the thing was delayed. One of the great stories in the book, to tell you the truth, is the trial of whether or not our nipples were covered with an opaque substance. And the investigator was so confident that he was going to get us on this thing that he didn't even take down the names of the girls. So I was left with no defense. If I don't know who he's alleging was not covered with an opaque substance, what do I do? So what I came up with, and I couldn't believe I was doing it as I did it, was I decided to produce 5 topless girls, entertainers, in the courtroom and ask the investigator on the stand to differentiate who had latex on and who didn't, who was wearing opaque substance, who wouldn't. I don't know if he's still alive, but I thought the judge, he was an old man, and he looked at me with knives coming out of his eyes. I mean, if he could have killed me right there on the spot, he would have. So we after much negotiation with this judge, we came up with, we'll we'll close the doors. We'll do the windows. We'll turn off the lights. We'll put on, blue and red lights, just like you're in the club. And he eventually, after consulting with the judges above him, decided that's what we would do. And he got it all wrong. As the girls, and the judge insisted that the girls stand still, which I objected to because that tilts the test in favor of the investigator. Because in the club, the girls are dancing and the breasts are moving, much harder to tell. But he was insane. I must tell you, just insane. In that every time a girl moved in the courtroom, he would stand up at the bench and scream, "Don't move that thing!" And the girls started screaming back at him. The whole thing was insane. Okay, and in the end, to make a long story short, because I know I've taken a lot of time, but not the most important story in the book. But in the end, that law was determined for a bunch of reasons to be unconstitutional, and breasts were free to dance without the latex in New York, thanks to Scores.
Hey, and when you read that part in the book, it's like he's fighting he's arguing before the Supreme Court. He treats this as liquor license violation. He really goes to town on it. It's definitely a great. But by the way, the book is very funny. There's a lot of really good funny lines in there, and you come off as a likable character.
Isn't it amazing how you sit down? I mean, you know what happened to me, although I'm sure the audience doesn't. And this book is the story of the destruction of my life. Going from someone who was on top of the world, the owner of owner of all he possessed, and I wound up being destroyed as a person. Yet the only way I kept my sanity was writing about what happened to me, and I just write funny. I mean, all my friends always tell me, I tell stories which are so decimating, but I tell them in a way that's funny, and that's what kept me sane, because I think that I would have just lost my mind with all that I went through in connection with what happened with Scores and its destruction and the protection that we were forced to buy from the mafia and the investigation that the feds brought upon the club, and then the results of everything that went on, the incredibly successul investigation for everybody but me and my partner.
Yeah, you got a bad deal. You got a bad deal down there. Yeah, that was really that was shocking to hear. Considering
the worst deal any cooperator who went undercover ever did.
Now, but let me ask you a question now, because you're not like a naive guy. Like it kind of cut out when you were explaining. But you had the Coumo law firm. Andrew Cuomo, who's the governor now in New York, was your law partner. And as a matter of fact, he was an underling to you at one point, right? He came in as an intern or something.
Yeah, when he first came in, I'm older than he is, but he was gone by the time Scores was open. Yeah, he had left the firm and gone on to he was working for a charity at that point, and. With his departure and with the departure of his former fiancée at the same time, my political life had gone. But you're right. I mean, I was a savvy guy, and I did everything that you're supposed to do to protect yourself. But the protections in my particular case didn't work, mostly because the entire plea agreement that I went into was conditioned upon a case that was being investigated against me in Florida for an insurance fraud, was supposed to be moved to New York for sentencing. And that gave me the confidence that if I agreed to go undercover against the mob, I would get the kind of treatment that people who take that kind of risk and live with it the rest of their life are accorded in all of the big cities. And the case in Florida was being investigated in one of the smallest districts in the country, and I had great fear of exactly what happened, that they would not be impressed with that cooperation. And so in twist of fate and a lot of bad luck, I wound up sitting in a courtroom and receiving a sentence that, I was promised and given a 99.9% promise from the Southern District of New York, which is the same as 100% promise, that I would, if I got any jail time at all, which was unlikely, it would be 9 months or less. And I wound up getting a sentence in the beginning of 25 years, more than anybody else in the case, more than any of the mafia guys. So the twist of fate became extraordinary. But the road that it took me on and took Scores on, and how Scores was created, from an illegal entity into the most successful club in the history of New York City, including Studio 54. Yeah. It's just an enticing tale, and what I was required to do when they put me undercover was extraordinarily funny at times. It was like people groping in the dark, to be honest with you, and it was at times exhilarating. It was at times very interesting. I think I had a psychotic break during the entire thing, and then as the sentence came down because so many political people stood up for me. During the entire time of George W. Bush's presidency, and remember, I'm a Democrat. I grew up in New York City. I never met a Republican until I was 14 years old or something. So to me, to have Republicans standing up for me, Michael Chertoff, who was the second head of Homeland Security, was sent by the Attorney General himself to the courtroom to plead for me. But we had a prosecutor and we had a judge that had no interest in showing us any leniency. I think a lot of it had to do with, being from New York, owning a strip club, being Jewish, and I'm not minimizing that I did play a role in an insurance fraud and I did deserve some punishment. But in this country, if you stand up and say I want to earn redemption by putting on a wire and going against the mafia, that really is important. That's really credited. I mean, look at some of the most famous mafia guys who had 8, 10, 12 murders. They got a sentence, a minor percentage of mine.
Well, yeah. Well,
but
wait a minute. Really, a lot of the guys you were wearing the wire for, a lot of the guys you were making cases against. These guys, I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but even Sergio and his son, they got less time than you.
Oh, of course, and so did the two captains, De Palma from Westchester, the father and the son, both got minimal time compared to me, and my partner. And it's just unheard of in the trade. But the people doing the sentencing down in Florida were not familiar with these kinds of cases and what the expectations were. And I'm not mad at anybody in New York. And the weirdest thing, the craziest part of how my life turned around, and the book really is less about this than it is about the Scores investigation and what happened to Scores and the undercover things that went down that led to such a successful thing. But it's I got lost in my sentence. What was I saying?
Well, we were talking about this.
I took that diversion, Ed, and I got lost in the sentence.
Well, we were talking about how guys like Sergio and De Palma and the father and the son all got less time than you.
Yeah, and it just didn't work out for me at all. I remember standing in the courtroom and receiving that kind of sentence and really going into shock.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Going down.
Let me ask you a question. Because like we said, and it kind of cut out when you were saying it, but you were with Coumo Law Firm. You were a big, powerful law firm, and you went into this, decided to get into the strip club business because these guys came up with this great idea, which was a brilliant idea. But now you were coming from New York and growing up in Brooklyn and having friends and doing this kind of business with politicians and stuff. You really didn't realize that when you opened up a strip club or any kind of bar in New York that you had to do business with these organized crime people?
I did realize it, but having owned businesses my whole life and having received such protection my whole life, I guess I actually just viewed it as as a cost of doing business in New York.
Right.
In those days, you truly, if you were unsuccessful, you were a little club that had nothing going on, nobody cared about you, Ed. Nobody did. But if you came out and you were a big successful club, you were going to have some sort of protection. And you couldn't even get payphones, which some people might not even know what a payphone is anymore. But you couldn't get payphones. You couldn't get your liquor. You couldn't get your meat. You couldn't get all the things you needed to have a club. Your laundry, your garbage. You could start getting these $5,000 summonses for garbage if you don't have somebody calling it off. And so I knew it was there. And in fact, as the book details, the mafia came calling on me before the club even opened, to explain to me my choices were to make a deal or probably have the club burned down. So, that didn't trouble me because I'd had clubs and discos and comedy clubs for so many years without incident in that regard. So I just thought it would be like every other thing. I never dreamed. Did I ever dream when I was opening? I was lucky to get the strip bar open. And as you know, it almost went bankrupt in the first year. But who could have foretold that Howard Stern would start talking about this club every single day of every single show, the whole show? We were sending up girls every day to sit with Howard Stern, who was such a wonderful guy to us. He adopted the club, and to the point where if I was somewhere in the country walking through an airport with a Scores hat, people would try to buy it off my head, or a Scores T-shirt. They would take the shirt off their back and say, "Can I buy that from you?"
Yeah, that's probably why I heard about it first from Howard Stern, and I lived in New York. Hey, we had a guest on the show, Davita Kelly. Did you remember Davita Kelly? She worked in part of that stuff, promotions with Scores and Howard Stern. Yes, absolutely. But not only, but it wasn't only the Scores the Stern phenomena. Yeah,
it was, and Stern went so far as he dedicated the second book, the second movie he made, and the second book he wrote to the women of Scores, and we were doing a soft porn business with him on I forget what you were. I guess it was on one of the things that sells movies.
Yeah, pay-per-view.
If you bought Howard's movie, you got the Scores movie for free. I mean, he became an intimate part of Scores' fabric and fiber. And it was, but really that accomplished was to bring in every celebrity. I mean, growing up in New York, how many real celebrities did you ever see, Ed? I didn't see any.
True, you never really noticed them. Even if you could walk right by some. I remember I saw Michael Douglas one time. I didn't even notice him.
But you go to L.A., and that's all you do is see celebrities walking around, with hairnets and jeans and T-shirts, but not New York. But Scores changed that because it was the single, only place that you were guaranteed to see celebrities. And it was celebrities from every walk of life. And this was all Howard Stern's doing because he had his private parties. The celebrities came to the private parties, and then the celebrities kept coming, and they kept coming. And I'm talking about all the Knicks, all the Rangers, all the Yankees, all the Mets. Everybody was there. Movie stars, DiCaprio, Wahlberg. There's nobody you can. Madonna was a regular. I mean, the list of celebrities for some of the young people listening may not be that impressive, but in our day, forget about it. It was everybody you ever wanted to see, anybody you ever wanted to talk. You go to Scores, and that's where you meet them. And it was just it was a life-changing experience for me.
Oh, I can imagine.
The most extraordinary thing.
Well, you tell a little story in the book about your meeting with Chuck Norris.
Yes, Stern made him a birthday party.
Yeah,
at the club.
Now, did you have a little crush on Chuck Norris when you met him?
What?
Did you have a little crush on him? Because it kind of seems like, like the way you tell the story, kind of like, did something go on with you and Chuck Norris?
No, absolutely not. But what I didn't say in the book, and which I shouldn't say on your show tonight, is that when I walked over to him, I thought he was sitting on a bar stool, okay? Because I was towering over him. And as it turns out, he was standing up because he's so tiny. And because I've owned so many clubs and restaurants where celebrities have come, I've grown used to the biggest celebrities being very small people. But Chuck Norris, who would have dreamed that I was taller than him? I mean, it was a blowaway, and he was delightful. In fact, he invited me and my partner to go down and be on Texas Rangers, Walker Texas Rangers, but life interceded in between. So, and Scores almost went bankrupt because we had a major problem in that. Okay, so now you come into the club. It's a magnificent place. Did you ever go there, Ed?
I've been there a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, but was it mine or the one that's on 28th Street now?
No, this was years ago. This is way back when during the big Howard Stern heyday. During that time, yeah.
Right. So it was mine. So that club was gorgeous. It was absolutely a blowaway. When you walked in there, it was just magnificent, and so New York had never seen anything like this before. And you've got 100 of the most beautiful girls in the world. We had the penthouse pet of the quarter century. We had Playboy bunnies. And this is great for a gay guy, right? I mean, I'm helpless here. In fact, let me tell you the story a little later about, there was the girls that outed me. It was absolutely the entertainers that brought me out of the closet because they figured it out before anybody else. Because if a girl worked on Thursday night in Scores at the height of Scores' popularity, she was coming home with $5,000 that night. But if she worked on a Sunday night, maybe she'd make $800. So everybody wanted to work Thursday, second most Wednesday, third most Tuesday, and even though most of the girls were either lesbians or bisexuals, which is another secret of the industry, I'm very sorry. They were willing to do almost anything to get a Thursday night. So they would approach managers, they would approach, people, some of the people who were also part owners or something, and they were very successful in trading their wiles for a Thursday night, because it was just so important to them. But with me, it didn't work because I wasn't buying what they were selling.
Yeah.
And so after a while, it became difficult, and they would, compare notes and say, what's with the guy? He doesn't react to us. He doesn't want to play with us. He doesn't ask us, to do anything for him. So they figured it out. And so, it became very difficult for me to then deny. And so sort of came out very slowly. I was pulled out of the closet by strippers.
And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Hey, you know, you talk in the book, too, about how some of the customers would fall in love with the girls and send them flowers and stuff.
Terrible, terrible. Terrible. Because you see it happening. A lot of the girls had life partners, and a lot of the girls were out for money, and they would meet a guy. Because our average customer, they're not stupid people. In those days, they were stockbrokers, doctors, lawyers, movie stars, everything. They had their heads on their shoulders, and most of them didn't want to break up their marriages. What they really wanted, Ed, was to have the experience with the magnificent girl in high school and college who told them they were nerds and walked away from them, and now they're going to play like they're the most beautiful men in the world. That's all they wanted. That was the dream, to live that experience with the most beautiful girls in the world. But some guys just got lost because some girls are so good at it.
Yeah.
And they would wind up getting cars and apartments And I tell the story in the book of one friend who I knew he was going down the drain. He was losing his marriage. He was losing everything because he fell in love with a stripper who had a life partner. And in fact, when I called the group together and I made them confess that they were life partners and that he had no shot, he got mad at me. I became the bad guy in that conversation because he dreamed that he was going to be able to turn her into, the full-time lover, which was never happening, but he was so blind to it because the girls were so special, so beautiful, and it was amazing. But I started this whole conversation by trying to tell you why we almost closed.
Right.
Because we couldn't keep our customers in money. So let's say you came in with $500 or $1,000. That's a big night of spending in some club for anybody, usually. But once that money was gone, you only had a choice of, going into the night and finding an ATM machine or something to keep the night going. And we tried to buy ATM machines, but they all have these morals clauses that they won't sell an ATM machine into a place that has any semi-nudity or nudity. So we couldn't get an ATM. I tried to go to the manufacturer and get one made for me, like the Scores ATM. Wouldn't do it. So in the end, we had to work with American Express and more than anybody else and other credit cards to create the funny money. So we printed our own money. And that became far and away the most profitable aspect of Scores. That's what made Scores what it was. Because before the funny money was invented, the girls just danced, they got their money, and that's it. They got their money. We were living off of the door, the bar, and the restaurant, which was really a loss leader. So here we are. We're trying to make money in this club, and after the first year, everybody's making money in the club, but the owners, and we're going down the drain. But funny money changed it. Do you understand how? I mean, I know you do because you read the book, but do you understand how the funny money works for the house?
Explain how that worked, because the first time I ever heard of funny money was from Scores, and I think though too. I think the first time I ever heard of girls having to start to pay like a house fee, like that rental fee for the night.
Yes. Every girl. See, we were going down the drain, and for every girl, my partner and I, we went around to different clubs down in Florida, all the places where they were flourishing, and the first thing we saw was girls play house fees. Because they're not employees, they're independent contractors. We actually gave them leases to sign, demonstrating that they were independent contractors. And we had a huge contract with the IRS as to how their money was done. We had an IRS guy at the club most weeks, and everything was working fantastically. But without the funny money, it was dying. I mean, without it, you can't do it. So how it worked is very simple. You came into the club, you gave us your American Express card, and we would charge, let's say, $1,200. We would only give you $1,000 in funny money. We printed our own $20 bill. You would then spend that in the club, and the girl at the end of the night would give us that $1,000, and that $1,000 would result for her receiving a check from us for $800. So now we made 1/3 of the revenues. Before Scores, we made zero in the industry on that kind of transaction. But it's even better than that, because our funny money expired every 30 days. And if you didn't use it and you couldn't cash it back in, it expired and it was a dead piece of paper. So add on another 10%. And then some people took it home as souvenirs and things like that. So, in the end, we were making probably half the money of the dancers, when before we were making none. But on top of it, the funny money allowed a customer who might have spent $500 or $400 or $1,000 a night to spend $10,000. Remember, this was the day when the stock market was booming beyond comprehension, and people were charging all of this stuff to their T&E accounts at these huge broker firms or law firms, or just in general industry. So it was great for everybody. And these girls, the rumors and the myths about high-end strippers, being just having daddy complexes and being people who had no, just all kinds of problems. It's just bullshit. I got better stock tips from my girls than I got from my stockbrokers. These women turned out to be dynamic business people, dynamic, and square-headed, and they were running families. The penthouse pet of the quarter century is still a thoroughbred race trainer, breeder, down I think in Texas or Louisiana, one of the southern states, and she got the money and the capital to do that, probably from Thursday nights at Scores.
Yeah, but most of these girls too, if they're making like $5,000 a night, they have little corporations and stuff like that where they're getting paid and writing off their expenses and stuff. Yeah,
they had their own corporations.
Yeah,
they were very, very sophisticated. Yet at the same time, in comes a customer. They'll be anything they want them to be. Because listen, if you're making $5,000 a night, Ed, are you really going to give some guy some sexual gratification for a couple $100 or risk? We had vice people from the city in there almost every night. And unlike, I don't know much about the industry anymore, but unlike in our day, there was no sex in Scores. Even in the the private sections, there was no sex in Scores. There were no drugs in Scores. And so it was an environment that a stockbroker, a doctor, a lawyer, a politician, anybody was comfortable in, because there was no illegality going on in there, and there was especially no sex going on in there. So it was a wonderful place. I mean, even for a gay guy to walk around in, I had a blast there, and most of my gay friends wanted to be there too. It was a very congenial atmosphere, and of course we had our significant problems with the mafia, but that came along with the journey.
Right, because you did have some. You did have some
mafia out of
You did have some problems because you had to turn the coat check over to this one guy, and you had to turn the valet parking over to this other guy. And they were doing stuff, right? They were...
Oh, they were impossible. They were just impossible. They were stealing out of the door. They were taking, cash. They wanted some sort of cash, and then they just kept stealing the rest that they wanted. And then in the coat room, we had so many problems in the coat room with coats disappearing and things, and the pockets disappearing, and the bouncers beating up customers who didn't want to. If it wasn't for the bouncers at the club, sent to us by the mafia, I don't think we would have had a fight in that club. Men were intimidated by 100 naked women walking around. It would almost be funny to watch a guy get into the chair, his lap dance would start, and he's gripping the handrests of the chair like he's in the dental chair. Because, there's something it's a combination of titillation and intimidation and all kinds of stuff going on. It's just a crazy, 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 crazy night when you walked into Scores.
Hey, getting back to Howard Stern for a second. Remember that story that came out, I think it was either Page 6 or the National Enquirer, that he had given a stripper over there a Mercedes? What do you know about that?
I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But he was just such a good friend to the club, and such a gentleman as well. And he had been a client of our law firm, and he just you can't say enough for when the microphone goes off what a gentle, respectful, appreciative man he is, and then the microphone goes on and the nightmare begins. So it's like it's this split personality. But he always used to tell me that wherever he goes, people would come and introduce themselves to him as the owner of Scores.
Yeah.
And he used to joke, he goes, "You have all these owners of Scores. How do I know that you're really the owner of Scores?" And this was a joke that went on for years between us, because and it's true. Listen, I used to sometimes stand at the door, and someone would come and ask to be let in for free because they were my cousin. And I would just sit there and watch this episode go on, because so many people are owners of Scores, so many people are investors of Scores, and people got so used to saying these lies that they would just say it without knowing who was around, and many times it was me. What do you say to somebody like this? He's just declared himself a member of my family.
Well, now with all this stuff with Stern, all that promotion he gave you, no money ever exchanged hands? Like you didn't have to pay for any advertising?
He wouldn't take a nickel. All he ever wanted from us was for us to populate his shows with the most beautiful girls we could find, and he wanted his private parties. And the parties took place after they closed down the radio show, and they would walk over. Everyone would come except Robin, and they would have like 4 hours to run free. And they made the most of it. It was, and once again, I can't speak for what we had a place called the Crow's Nest, which was the most served, section of the club for privacy. And I never went up there during those things. That they ever had sex up there. I think it was just, more of the same of contests and games and playing around, because that's just the way he was when the microphone wasn't on. And it was just an amazing sort of thing, because you can't imagine the number of people who would come to the door and say, this is the scores that Howard Stern talked about, right? I'm really here now. This is the right place. And it would just be amazing on how it would go. And are we going to explain the Kenny Cole story?
Yeah, well, before we do, we will definitely. But before we do, you took a poll one time of who was the most nicest guest and who was the snottiest guest and all that kind of stuff. Who was the cheapest celebrity? Right. Why don't you tell people how that came out?
Oh my God, I don't know that by heart.
Well,
and I don't have a copy of the book here.
I can tell you, I wrote down a couple of notes. The nicest one was Jim Belushi.
Everybody loved Jim Belushi. Jim Belushi was so beloved in the club, it was amazing. He was just such a warm and wonderful guy. And, and almost all of the celebrities were nice. There's a couple of people were crazy, like Dennis Rodman was crazy. Yeah. He would always complain that people were bothering him, and then he'd do something to make everybody watch him. So he would always do that. And so I think I put in the book, it was like Shakespearean, the lady doth protest too much. He didn't want anybody to bother him, but he did everything he could to get attention. But so what were some of the other categories?
Tom Arnold.
Oh, they hated him. Oh, was he nasty? Oh, he was so nasty to the girls, and anytime he would come in, the girls would like groan. They just didn't want him around.
What was he doing? What was he doing? Do you know?
No, he was just mean. He was not a tipper. He was not pleasant. We had some incidents with celebrities, with some touching that shouldn't have gone on that went on, but we just put an end to it. The book is, one of the reasons that I wrote the book was just a need to, for the years that I was in the witness protection program and incarcerated in one of their facilities, not a real jail. It was, I don't know how to put this in the right context. I needed to tell the story for real, because I've read so many tales of bullshit about scores and how it came about and what happened. And I think a doorman wrote this extensive article that was published all over the place, and people always taking shots at me, and so I needed to divest myself, and nobody ever knew what happened. Nobody knew how scores came about. Nobody knew we were illegal. Nobody knew we freed the breasts of New York for people to get lap dances. Nobody knew any of this stuff. And so I just felt a compelling need to tell the story, and also tell the story about how the mafia came in and did what it did for the club. But even in that vein, it was not like, it wasn't like the mafia came in and they were bad guys. They became part of the family almost. And then the government comes in and they want us to get the mob. I have my problems with the insurance fraud down in Florida, and I got everybody coming after me at one point, and then the government offers me a lifeline. I take it, and the lifeline fails. But the story of the undercover work, the story of how we discovered that we were being monitored, the story of how we proceeded to obtain the evidence that was needed for a universal plea of like 34 members of multiple crime families, has never been told. So I told it.
And that reminds me too. Now, has anybody? Are you in negotiations for a movie deal? Because this would make a great movie.
Well, we are in the process of making everybody says that, we've gotten such unbelievably wonderful customer reviews on audio, what's it called, audible.com and on Amazon and on Kindle. I mean, everyone says what you just said. This has to be a movie someday. Well, we're trying. I'm trying. I've got a documentary with Goldcrest Films that is in production right now, and that should come out by the end of the year or the beginning. And we did have Gaumont International Television, which does a lot of the series for I can't think of the channel right now, Netflix. They do a lot of this. So Gaumont has optioned it. We're waiting on a pilot script, And if they take it and then Netflix likes it or one of the other places, then Gaumont will produce it. They do Narcos, the series that's on there, and they do so many series. They're really they started out as a Parisian company like 100 years ago, and they have offices in London, Paris, and Los Angeles. And so we're hopeful that this will tell the real story of Scores and the amazing story of Scores, which has never been told, and which most people who even worked at Scores didn't know. You read that book, you know more than anybody who worked at Scores.
Now, how are you doing today financially? Because you were wildly successful. You're a very wealthy man. How are you making out?
Yes, terrible.
Really?
Terrible. Yeah. It's just I'm doing. Listen, I work for some wonderful people. I sort of, I've been helped. I live in plain sight, but I'm hidden with the help of the government, and I'm not in the. Well, I'm not supposed to talk about this stuff, but I have a very difficult life. I've only been home for about 4 years now. I work for some wonderful people who absolutely take care of me and look out for me and let me use my legal skills as an assistant to a lawyer. Imagine being the head of a senior partner of a major Park Avenue law firm with famous people as your partners, and then you wind up as some paralegal someplace. But I make the best of it. I've been humbled by this whole experience. I'm not the person I was, although I was never a snotty, difficult, mean guy, to be honest with you. And I was always affable. But I've lost everything. I had a beautiful penthouse apartment in the Corinthian on 37th and First, and my partner and I shared a home out in the Hamptons. All gone. Everything's gone. And now the greatest supporter that I have is the only victim of the insurance fraud. So the tables have been turned completely. The insurance fraud resulted initially in a whole bunch of senior citizens losing their annuities, which was horrible. And I can't say that I knew about most of what was going on, but in law you're responsible for anything that's foreseeable. So I was stuck. But in any case, I went to work during those years for the insurance department of the state of Delaware, which every single person who lost their annuity account got paid back the full amount of their investment on the day the company closed. So there's not one single individual victim. The only victim was the state of Delaware. And I testified in multiple trials and put in multiple affidavits and worked with them so hard and so long that every single dollar at this point, I believe, that they paid out to individuals has been paid out to Delaware. And I'm still working with them in trying to clean up, the balance of stuff. And they've turned out to be great supporters of mine. They're supporting the book. They're participating with me in the book. And it's amazing how, even the FBI agents who were trying to put me away have turned out to be, supportive of what I'm trying to do in telling the story and putting my life back together. But I live on so little money, and I just don't have any kind of the life that I used to have. But I've accepted it, and I'm hoping that the book will sell, that the documentary will sell, that there will be a TV series. I'm so blessed with the greatest agents, out in Hollywood helping me, and it's amazing. But in this industry, you don't make money quickly. The book comes out. I took no advance on the book to get it. I'm with a fantastic publisher down in Texas, but I'm not going to see my first check till like June 30th, and no real money until December 31st. And the documentary, I'm a participating person in that, so it's profits. The TV series, I got a small advance to buy the option to do it, but who knows? So it is a very strange world for me, because I was never poor until now.
How long has the book been out?
28 days.
Okay, great, yeah. I can't thank you enough for coming on, because as soon as I saw this, it was just incredible. Now, let me ask a question. Now, the whole insurance thing down in Florida is so complicated. But now, were you on the jackpot? Were you already in trouble for that when you were trying to raise money to open Scores?
There was a rumor. My partner and I really didn't understand the full scope of what had gone on. It would be years until we understood what actually happened down there. So we knew that there was rumblings of problems down there, but they hadn't come to fruition yet to where we were let's call it desperately frightened.
Right.
Actually, the first time that we understood that we had problems was in my law firm. I'm finding bugs in the ceiling. I'm finding microphones. I'm finding cameras in the ceiling. This was extraordinary, and we couldn't figure out who it was. We didn't know if it was the mafia checking up on us, if it was some of the people down in Florida, if it was people in New York, if it had something to do with scores. We were losing our minds. And we'd find the cameras, we'd take them out, and a week later they'd be back. It happened like 3 times. And there's a hysterical part of the book where it's like we're trying to find out where does the camera go to, and it was like almost like a scavenger hunt, if you remember, running around the whole building at 3 Park Avenue, trying to find out where the hell because these cameras wind up, and we didn't find out that way. The only time we found out was when the government fessed up to it and offered us a deal that couldn't be refused, because they had played us a tape where they were going to kill my partner.
Yeah.
And the whole thought was if they killed him, then I would give them half the club for greater protection. So, there was a need to do something. We couldn't just sit around, and we took the cooperation card, and it works out for 99% of the people. And I honestly believe that the New York people made the deal with us in the best of faith, and really believed that we would be treated like everybody else, and we weren't. We were treated worse than anybody else has ever been treated. So this is the way it went down.
When you knew you might have potential charges down in Florida, and you were finding these wiretaps and these cameras and stuff in your offices, your law offices, okay? Now, with
extraordinary.
Now, these mafia guys, you were talking to them about this because you had to, tell them, hey, we might have trouble, right? None of them. So none of them were saying, "Hey, we got to get away from this guy. Don't send over $1,000 a week to John Gotti because that would be a stupid idea. He doesn't need $1,000 a week." You know what? You are a very logical, intelligent man, because you definitely be the thought that should go through people's minds. Yeah.
But you know what? As the mafia guys said to me, as over and over again, the money was blinding. And so there was so much money going into so many people in so many ways that it was almost like delusional. We were all being delusional. Okay, we all thought it would work out okay, because everything for us guys always worked out okay. We always thought there would be something that would go right, but this was the one case where every left turn turned into a right turn, and we were wrong all the time. We bet on everything we bet on was wrong. But of course, you think that the mafia would run away from us?
Yeah.
Everybody would run away from us, but nobody ran away from us. He just kept running to us. And you, having read the book, you know how many times I almost died, how many times I was almost caught with a wire on me, how Leonardo DiCaprio saved my life. I mean, I had so much luck in this, yet at the same time, I believe I had a psychotic break. I thought I lost my mind.
Now, you got these charges, and they didn't even file the charges yet. And it seems like the total losses down there in Florida were like $30 million totally, right?
Oh, no, it's much more than that, they say.
Okay.
They say it was upwards of like $300 million and stuff. There was a massive fraud. Even the government said that, I only got a few $1 million out of that whole thing, and I don't even know if I got that, to tell you the truth, because I wasn't paying attention to the insurance stuff that was going on the way I should have been, and other people who were taking all the money really knew what was going on, but as a matter of law, I was responsible for it. But I felt so. I would say that the single most thing that I am the most proud of is that as a result of my cooperating with Delaware, and I was the only participant, or one of the only participants, or the most successful participant in the fraud in any degree who cooperated with Delaware. Delaware has written letter after letter, made court appearance, not anymore because I'm obviously home and free, but at the time, they showed up every single hearing, supported me every single time, and have been nothing but fantastic to me because my cooperation help them pay back every single person. I'm so proud that being faced with this kind of monumental fraud, that nobody lost any money, that every single human being who invested in that company got a check for their money back. And the people in Delaware are just super competent, super dedicated, and have been so supportive of me and helpful, and I've tried to do the same thing back. And I really, I mean, I don't want to sound stupid or dwell on this, but it's really a sense of pride to me. That I can go to bed at night and know that not one person lost money.
But
even though that fact has been misreported in a lot of different places, and sometimes I get reviews on the book that say, well, he stole money from old people, so I'm going to give him a shitty review. Yeah. And I can't write in and say, hey, I'm the author and you're wrong, so I just have to read it and feel terrible.
You actually can leave a comment on there, but you don't want to start arguing with those people because then it just gets worse.
No, exactly. You're right. That's a more accurate depiction because I don't want to get in a dissing contest with someone who doesn't like me already.
But all the defendants down in Florida, there was no opportunity for them to offer restitution and try and negotiate that down. You're all getting where'd all that money go? It has to be someplace.
We didn't have the money.
Oh, because a lot of went to junk mortgages.
400,000 missing, 400 million missing. We didn't have that money, my partner and I. That money was long gone. There were guys, there were so many people that we never even met who were involved in frauds in that company. It was fraught with problems. And Delaware came in there, closed the company, gave everybody their money, and went to work. And
we got a break. We got a break coming up. We're with Michael Blutrich, and the book is called Scores: How I Opened the Hottest Strip Club in New York City and was extorted out of millions by the Gambino family and became the biggest witness in history. We'll be back with more of Michael Blutrich right after these messages. This is a fascinating story. We haven't even gone into how he went undercover and he started wearing a wire. The guy did business with Trump. We got questions for Michael Blutrich coming up right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down. Available at Lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at KMDlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to KMDlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We are with Michael Blutrich. And Fascinating book, Scores, How I Opened the Hottest Strip Club in New York City, was extorted out of millions by the Gambino family, and became one of the most successful mafia informants in history. Michael Blucher. And Michael, too, you were in radio. You did a psychic radio show?
Yeah, I did 7.5 years between WOR and WEBD. I did a show with a wonderful psychic and his mom. They're both dead now, Yolana and Ronald Bard. And it was a call-in talk show. And I did it on Saturday nights. It was like 3 hours long, and it was my blast of the week. I never enjoyed doing anything more than having that radio show.
I think I remember it.
I miss it. I miss it to this day.
Well, you want to get on radio? I guess you're on radio.
It was such a popular show.
Yeah, I think I remember it. It was like a psychic and like UFOs. What was it called?
It was called Psychic Eye, EYE.
Yeah.
And we used to do all of that stuff, and we'd bring on people who would, in much of the flavor of, because I listened to you, I mean, much of the flavor that you're willing to probe into too. But sometimes it was very serious and believable, and sometimes we'd bring on the nuts who, who'd just gotten back from a trip to Mars, and wanted to tell everybody about it. We had a great time there. But all the psychics who had written books and came to New York for to try to enhance their sales would stop at our place, and celebrities used to come in. And so, like with everything else in my life, Scores helped me, because I would get celebrities from Scores to walk over on Saturday night sometimes and do my show for 20 minutes, and it was wonderful. I mean, we had celebrities from there, and that's basically Scores got me the HBO contract for my boxing company.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask you about that. Right, you were a boxing promoter, right? And you did deals with Donald Trump.
Yes, I held that. Well, yes, Donald Trump was. I don't know if I can't say he was a co-promoter, but we used to present in Atlantic City boxing matches on pay-per-view for HBO, and he would put up the Trump Taj Mahal Arena, and he would get all of the big time whale gamblers into his casino for the night, and he would get the hot dogs and the hamburgers and the concessions, and we would get the ticket price, and we would share in the revenues with HBO. And frankly, I was licensed in like 30 states by the end of it, and it was an unbelievable experience, but it was helped by Scores, because like everything else, everything peels into each other when you're in that role. Everything works because Scores would people would come to Scores and be our whales, and we would send them down to the fight. And I controlled. Donald controlled, the president controlled half of the front row seats, and I controlled half of the front row seats, and those were powerful enticements to people. So everything just bled into each other. And in fact, as it turns out, the FBI admitted to me after that they actually tried to and did disrupt my licensing in Atlantic City as a prelude to soften me up to get me to cooperate.
Oh boy!
So I mean, they really, really, really wanted this done. I mean, this was such a big case to them. And they planned ahead on how to break me down. And I didn't see it coming.
back to Trump for a second, because Trump was also a frequent guest at Scores.
No, I really wouldn't say frequent. I really wouldn't. Listen, if I had some great Trump stories, okay, I'd be to talk about my book, but nobody with new books can get on TV right now. But he was on occasion a law firm client of our law firm, okay. And he did go to Scores, but I wouldn't say frequent. I would say somewhat regular. And he never held parties in private rooms. He always did his parties right in the Champagne Lounge, out there with everybody. And I knew him. I spoke to him. He was always very nice to me. Never had a problem in the club with him.
Okay, and he was a client of your law firm. So now when you see him as president, how do you feel? You feel nervous? Do you feel confident that he's,
I'm not really a political guy anymore. It's kind of left. But, growing up in New York,
right?
To me, it's such an odd situation to have him as a Republican and some of the the views that he expresses are so different from mine on social issues. But in business, I'm willing to give him a chance. But I am frightened right now. I just like everybody else, we don't know what the future is going to bring. It's such a strange world right now politically, and I'm just trying to survive it.
I know. But do you think he's over his head, or do you think he's doing some kind of secret judo and he's going to come out of this on top? Well, what do you think is going on?
Can I take off this topic because I don't know.
Okay.
With all of the incredibly smart people trying to figure out what's going on, I'm like at the bottom of the barrel.
Okay, no problem.
I don't know anything.
So now,
and you know what made me so happy? First off, you really shook me up when you opened the thing with the Kenny Cole thing. And it's not an important story, but you really got me. I mean, that was a great way to start it because I'm still laughing about it because I just, just like kicked me in the head. And the fact that you found the book funny, you picked up on. But you know why? Because you're from New York.
Yeah.
You've got the New York humor that I have. You grew up in the same kind of, everything is funny. And you take on adversity with humor, and it diffuses it. And I also think that's one of the reasons the Florida people hated me, because I was always funny, and they didn't want me to be funny. They wanted me to be terrified.
But wait
and
a
I was
second.
terrified. But that makes me funny.
That Florida prosecutor, Hunt, her name was?
Yes.
She was on a witch hunt for you, man. Something's going on there. Do you think maybe she had some kind of deal with these Gambino people or some other people and behind the scenes?
I don't think so.
No?
I think that what happened was, and once again, it redounds to my prejudice, even though I had nothing to do with it. They were very, very frightened and protective of me in the Southern District of New York. They believed, and I think they were correct, that if I was discovered wearing a wire, I would have been immediately killed. Or before the case was over, if they discovered I was wearing a wire, I would be killed. So therefore, nobody in the Southern District of New York, except the two prosecutors that were working with us and the three FBI agents who were working with us, knew about the investigation. Remember, this is like the biggest investigation that they're undertaking in the decade, and we're up in the small Westchester satellite office. We're not even in Manhattan because they just didn't think they could protect us. And Washington and New York made the decision outside of my partner and I to not tell Florida about it, even though they knew that Florida was investigating the two of us in connection with that insurance fraud. And I think that she was very offended by that, and that her ego was tarnished and hurt, that her insurance fraud case wasn't getting the same attention from anyone that the Scores case was getting, and I think that she developed a prejudice from that. And then when you throw in that I, as a person, stand for everything that she despises in life. She's not fond of lawyers. She's not fond of cooperators. She's not fond of Jewish people. She's not fond of boxing promoters. She's not fond of strippers. And so, I am basically the Antichrist. So it's sort of like this. I was the perfect storm for this to happen to, even though it's never happened to anyone else before, this kind of very rough treatment, even though you've gone undercover. Whereas people who've committed 18 murders, people who've committed 25 murders, have been given great leniency and consideration for doing what I did, but not as successfully.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even how they wouldn't let you go, what was it, Atlanta, Georgia, to that strip club down there to work on the...
Isn't that a crazy story? Isn't that a crazy story?
Well, explain what happened.
We're on our way to Atlanta with a whole team of FBI agents, and the judge in conference with the prosecutors in Florida vetoed the trip. And the reason given is that I'm a flight risk. I'm a flight risk with 10 FBI agents around me? I mean, this is crazy talk. And then she reversed herself. The order got reversed the day after the conference was over and we couldn't go anymore.
Right. The deal was...
explain stuff like this.
They indicted you down in Florida. You had to go down for a bail hearing. They wanted $1 million bail, but you got out on $300 bail after confessing to the judge in a secret hearing that you're working undercover for the FBI. This is, when you read this stuff, it's unbelievable.
I got to tell you, you're mirroring so many of the fantastic people who've been writing great reviews. I mean, literally on Audible.com, we're only out like 3 weeks, and we've got like 66 or 68 reviews, and 67 of them are 5 stars, and they all say the same thing. It's hard to believe this story. I mean, I'm taking the word of the author that this is all true, because and we've had this book vetted by everybody. The FBI took a look at it. The agents took a look at it. The lawyers who were involved took it. Every single person, and of course, the book has been brought to there's been a combination of meetings and some things are out of place to make it more understandable to the reader. But every participant in this has gone over it and agreed that I've correctly stated what happened. And in cases where I was wrong, we corrected it pre-publication. So, we had a couple of dates wrong, and everybody helped us out to try to make, and still nobody can believe it. Everybody says this story's got, something's wrong here. There's got to be more to this. There's got to be. The same thing happened when we were in the witness units, the Federal Bureau for Prisons, because we would go in there and guys who killed 5 people or guys who were major murderers for drug cartels, they would come in and they go home in 2 years, like every other witness. We're stuck there year after year into the second decade, and everybody figured we must have, really been convicted for some terrible, heinous crimes and no one would believe us, that we just had bad luck all the way through this thing.
Yeah, see, because when I started reading the book, and you kind of just allude to this uncomfortable situation down in Florida. You don't even get into it's this whole big case. Well, this unfortunate situation down in Florida with an insurance company. I don't know where they started a fire, he burned a car or something. I'm thinking, what could it be? But then it turns out to be a big.
You've really hit the nail on the head, and I'll tell you exactly why. And you spotted why we had to make this decision. We must have written and rewritten the part about the insurance fraud 30 times. And finally, the editors to the publishers finally came to understand that this fraud is so complicated and took so many people so long that we would need another 100 pages of the book to go through it. So instead, we uncomplicated it, and we only put it in. And there's been American greed on this thing, and there's been a 60 Minutes on it, and so the fraud has been fairly well developed in other places. But the big problem was that we couldn't get it. The book would have been 450 pages or 500 pages. It's not worth Gone with the Wind and War and Peace. It's just a little story about a Jewish kid who got in trouble and how events unfolded. So we left the insurance. There was even talk about taking the insurance fraud out of the book, but I thought that would be dishonest. So we left in very few pages, very few details, just so the reader would understand, why would I do this? Because otherwise, if we talk about the insurance, wouldn't you say, why would this guy, he's got money up the yin-yang, he's got the greatest club in the world, we had just signed a deal with Playboy to make all the Playboy clubs, Playboy Presents, I guess it wasn't signed, but it was on our desk, Playboy Presents scores. The future was unbelievable. Why would I do this? Why would I go undercover? Why would I wear a wire? The things I went through were insane. I don't think there's any other word to say that my undercover activities were insane.
Yeah, right. Although I still have a hard time understanding why you took this deal, but because I don't know, because you could have left the country. There's places you can go. I don't know. But listen, anyway, you made the decision. They raid. The FBI comes one morning raiding your house with money counting machines, right?
Right.
Now, there's
no money in my house.
Yeah. Now, you think they were looking for the insurance money?
I don't think no. I think that the New York people were given some very bad information, and I still don't know who gave this information because they won't tell me. It's like a standing joke between us. It's like 17 years later, and they still won't tell me the certain aspects of it, which I guess I respect their ethics. But they thought that we were money laundering with the mob, and that we were doing illegal hard money loans, and that we were working with the mob to loan money at usurious prices. And someone told them that if they went into my house, they would find a safe, which I did have a safe, and they would find $1 million in there. So imagine, I can't understand what's going on, because they wake me up in the early morning, and a team of FBI guys come running in to my place, to Scores, and to the law firm, and they've got 100 money counting machines, like we're going to the Treasury, and they got nothing nowhere. Scores had $800 in it. The law firm had zero, and I had zero. The only money I had in the whole place was in my pocket. And you had to see the looks on the agents' faces when they opened that safe, and it was empty. It was just completely empty, and they just the whole air came out of the room, and they just left.
But okay, they just left you that day, but then you found the
came back.
Yeah, but you found the cameras after that, right?
No, the cameras preceded that. That was the crescendo. Okay. In other words, we first we found the cameras, and because we were tipped by the office building maintenance staff that someone had come up during the weekend and gone into our ceilings with wires. A specialist who found this antiquated, old, crappy wire, a camera and microphones in my ceiling. And in the beginning, we said, can't be the federal government. Look at this crap they're using. I mean, this stuff is 20 years old. It wasn't even, it had to draw electricity from,
right.
From the phone lines. It was so old and antiquated. So I kept trying to convince myself. So we got rid of the whole thing. And we figured, who knows who this is? Maybe it's the mafia checking on us. Maybe it's somebody from the insurance fraud checking on us. Maybe nobody trusts us. Maybe it's something we don't even understand. Maybe something to do with boxing or something. So we kept being lost as to why is this happening to us. And then after we get it out, 2 weeks later, I walk in my office and I see a little white stuff on my desk, and I look up and there's another hole in the ceiling, and we call back the same guy, and we find better cameras this time. But even after that, nothing happened. We didn't hear from anybody. Nobody, and that we finally figured it out when they woke us up that morning and with hundreds of money counting machines that didn't get to count $1. And then right after that, we got invited up to the U.S. Attorney's office to receive their offer to become cooperators and to get our lives back.
So I'm
still waiting for my life back. If you know anybody.
Now, you had a week to make up your mind if you're going to start wearing wires for guys like John Gotti Jr., who was at the time shooting Curtis Sliwa in a cab. The guy was a little off the rails, kind of going after everybody.
And I remember looking at the U.S. attorney in charge of the case and saying, Are you mistaking me for somebody with balls? I mean, I'm a little kid from Brooklyn. I went to Hebrew school. I got a bar mitzvah. I used to tap dance and play the accordion. I'm not a guy to wear a wire, but they had been softening me up for a very long time. They had me in their scopes, and they got me. And by some weird twist of extraordinary nonsense, I wind up being somebody who can really do this. And maybe it was because I acted as a kid and I'd done commercials and I was comfortable and I'd done the radio and I was, and I can, present myself in ways and nobody ever suspected me, ever. It was like everyone just accepted it was Michael as usual. And yet I was in torment and hurt so many friends and people that I cared about because I was lost. I was not myself. Imagine you wake up in the morning, you go to your law firm, you do your job, you're representing clients, you're having meetings. The FBI is coming in the afternoon to explain that they need you this night, and then you go to Scores and make sure everything is there over there, and then you leave there and meet the agents back at your apartment to be pre-briefed on what they want you to do, and then they send you out fully with a wire, in your on your leg and microphones on your chest to meet with armed mobsters. It's mind numbing.
Wait, but not only that, but a lot of these guys were your friends, though. The guy from Grandpa's Comedy Club, used to socialize with this guy. How did you, come to terms with that?
There was torment.
Yeah.
Okay. And many times in the book, I stop and talk about how I loved some of these guys. I mean, not like I don't mean love like gay people love each other. But I mean, I love these guys. They had been with me since Scores opened. They'd had my back. They had helped me, and now I was putting them away. I mean, I'm not a stupid guy, and I know that everything is greed and everything is money, and they had done some really stupid things. Like the government would never have had a case if they weren't talking on the phone every single day that they own Scores. I mean, I listened to some of these tapes. I transcribed some of these tapes, and for the government, and it's just on and on and on. This Scores is our place. These idiots that own it, eventually we'll take it away from them, and all of this stuff. This was going on the whole time. But I was torn because I felt like they were going down because they loved me and trusted me, and I was their friend, and I was taking them down. Not that they didn't richly deserve to come down, because they had overstepped their promises and everything else. It's just a terrible thing. Just terrible kind of feeling inside that everything is slipping away from you. Even your mafia friends, you're betraying. You're betraying everyone. You're betraying, and in so many cases where some of my best friends started to despise me because I wasn't becoming available, I wasn't being a good guy, I wasn't being myself, and I couldn't tell them that I'm protecting them. I don't want them around when I've got the wires spinning. I don't want them around if something goes wrong. I don't want the mafia to start identifying, so I push them away purposely. And yet, and some of them have still never spoken to me again, and probably still don't understand that I did that to protect them. But that's how I felt about it. And as these things went on, and let's save, if you'll give me the courtesy of letting me save some of these unbelievable stories about the undercover stuff for people who actually buy the book. I don't want to give away everything. What I went through, as you read, was enough, I think, to break the strongest among us.
Now, right, and wait, but you were confiding in some people, because you said that you confided in a psychic friend of yours that you were working undercover?
I had a psychic radio show. And there was one particular woman who I've lost touch with, and I don't know where she is. I had told her about it, and she actually tipped me one night that she had a very bad feeling about something that was going on, and that was one of the 5 or 6 nights where I really almost got killed. I mean, if she hadn't tipped me, and I hadn't, what I did in reaction to her telling me I was going to have trouble is I moved the microphones that they would always put on my, below my nipples on my chest. I actually moved them down into my pants, and that singular act, at her advice, saved my life that night. And I was so lucky on so many different occasions when I could have went down, in a second. And each time some power from somewhere always intervened, and now I'm not so sure I'm happy they did because life has been so hard and so rough. But at the same time, it was an experience that very few people will ever have.
Did you confide in other people?
I'm not so happy I had it, but I had it.
Did you confide in other people that you were working undercover? Because word gets out on that kind of stuff.
Well, but I was very, very, very careful. One family member knew. This psychic knew. Even my partner's wife didn't know. I mean, we didn't tell anybody because we understood that. And then there was one night where one of my best friends got mad at my partner and told the mafia guy, well, they're cooperating against you, because he was so angry at my partner. And he was guessing. He didn't know.
Oh, really?
And he almost put us under, because I actually had a gun pointed at me that night in my office when that statement was made. And I was able to talk my way out of that. But, I was so happy that you said that you laughed through the book, too, because I really, truly think it's a funny book, isn't that strange that it's a funny book?
Yeah, no, you come off as a likable person. You definitely do. And I like the little twists and turns of phrases, a lot of New York type jokes. But it's very difficult for someone who has been an informant to come off as a likable person. A rat. You know what I mean? A rat. But you come off, it's very genuine.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say, though, what about, are you in touch with any of these people now, like Andrew, your partner, or any of the guys who did time? Because a lot of times they forget.
Ever since this went down, Andrew and I have had no contact at all, and I understand that. Yeah. I mean, he's a successful governor of the state of New York. What does he need to be?
No, not Andrew Cuomo. Andrew, your partner.
Andrew. Okay. That's not his real name, so that's why I got confused for a moment. No, we are not in touch with each other because one of the deals that we made with the government was that we would be housed together in the witness protection program the entire time we would be together, and they broke that deal in 7 months, 8 months, and they separated us. And I kept getting moved around because I was a lawyer, and everybody wanted to be in the same unit as me because I was helping people with their legal problems. So what they would actually do, to tell you the truth, is they would gather up requests to move to my place, and then the night before they were bringing all the people who made those requests, they'd move me to another place.
Oh.
And then my partner wound up staying in the same place the whole time. So no, I'm not in touch with him, and
now,
I don't even know where he is.
You had a deal, and they were telling you, okay, you're going to do maybe a year or 2 years in a country club. All these kind of promises were being made to you, right? So you were kind of living on hope. But toward the end there, you started going a little nuts, right? You started doing like witchcraft and stuff like that, and sacrificing chickens and doing all that.
Yeah. I completely lost. And remember, I knew all these people because of the psychic show.
Right.
And so I knew where to go and what to do. I did so many things that were so disgusting that I can't even. I think I would puke if I started thinking about them. I mean, I sat in disgusting liquid to get things away. I threw fruit into the Atlantic Ocean. I had shamans blow bourbon all over me and ruined a $3,000 suit. I would do anything and everything to try to get whatever powers there were to help me, because I couldn't figure out why I was going down the drain. I knew I was going down the drain. I could feel that the forces for me were fading and the forces against me were gaining, power, and there was nothing I could do. I had the greatest lawyer in the world, and he was actually a law partner of the judge, and he had so much faith in her that he kept convincing me over and over again that she was going to do the right thing, because he couldn't conceive that any federal judge would treat my partner and I so harshly after spending so much time risking your life. But we were in the perfect storm. This is what your Republican judge ignores some of the most important Republicans in the country asking her to be lenient with us, and it doesn't happen. How does that happen? To this day I can't explain it. I hold no malice against the judge whatsoever, because I believe that she was misled by forces within the government in her district, because she has what's really wild, Ed, is she has a reputation as being a very fair sentencing person. So I hold no malice. I have to believe that the information came her way somehow, some way, that just was slanted against us for reasons I don't understand. We also cooperated in Florida, and we cooperated in a case in Atlanta. So we cooperated all over the country. And then I took on all of this cooperation for the Delaware to get them their money back. And so I left the playing field with everybody okay except me.
Yeah, and it's not like this was a minor cooperation. There were guys confessing to murders and stuff,
Absolutely. We had the head of a family. We had captains, we had acting captains, we had everybody. It just, the thing had spread so crazy, but by more crazy stuff. So some of the Gambinos would hear somebody have a problem, they'd bring them to me, and there's another task force born.
Yeah. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to sing a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525. 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down. Available at Lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Now, you voluntarily put cameras in your law office, right? And you're crawling under the desk to turn the cameras on and off. You got code signals going back and forth. They're counting out money on your desk. But some of these cases, okay, to me. Now,
and listen, I was pretty chubby in those days, too. It's not some guy was, getting under his desk. Me getting under my desk, could be part of an Abbott Costello routine. I mean, I just couldn't get under there, and I had to memorize the colors of all the different. And I said to the FBI, I said, with all that's going on here and all the success we're having, you can't get a remote thing to turn on the goddamn cameras. I got to get on the floor and go under my desk and into a cabinet and crawl into the cabinet and reach up to turn on the cameras. And this is like 3 times a day.
It's funny because in the book you don't come right out and say you were chubby, but you get the impression that you were. I guess you're out of shape crawling under there.
I wasn't obese and I wasn't disgusting, but I was chubby. Okay. And the mafia guys always used to call me cherubic, which I was always amazed they knew the word. But they used to call me cherubic and chubby and this and that. And I'm much thinner now today. So
well, okay, that's a good topic though. Now you see on TV the impression of these mafia guys. They got their $300 suits, or not $3,000 suits, and they're classy guys, romantic charmers and stuff like that. Was that your experience with these characters?
No, not even close. Not even close. They listen, they had their agenda, and I can't talk for all mafia people because I don't know all mafia people. In fact, what always amuses people who talk to me is when they ask me questions about the mafia, I always go, I don't know. I knew a few guys, and most of the guys who were convicted in our case, I didn't know them either, because the cooperation works is that if you turn somebody, and then that person turns somebody, and then that person turns somebody, the guy who started the ball rolling gets credit for everybody. So that was me at the top of the pyramid. And so, when I get those 35 people in New York, and the 20 people in Atlanta, and then 7 people in Florida, a lot of those people I never met, but they fell victim to people who became cooperators because of our tapes. You see, one of the things that really went on in this whole thing was they knew what had happened, and they had figured out it was me eventually, because they removed me and my partner from New York and put us into FBI custody, in another state. So they knew it was us, and they started plotting against us with the most vile and disgusting stories about anything and everything. And then they finally realized, hey, we got a problem here. This is not him and his partner against us. This is us against us. This is videotape. This is film. This is sound. This is us playing out the crimes. I mean, we actually had scenes where guys were sitting around the table planning murder.
Yeah.
In the law firm conference room. Now, how are you going to contend you didn't take any affirmative act when you're sitting at a table and planning it? It was a tough situation for everybody.
Right, because you put these cameras in your law firm there, and then these guys are coming in. And it was one thing in particular, this wedding money laundering thing. Why don't you describe the wedding money laundering plan? Because you guys came up with that plan.
Well, yeah, there was one of the mafia presences at the club who was getting married and had been in the loan sharking business for a while and had accumulated quite a bit of cash and didn't want to declare it. So my partner discussed with him, well, why don't we just make wedding gifts and you'll give the money to Michael. He'll run it through the law firm escrow, and and then he'll give you checks, which will turn out to be wedding gifts from everybody, and you'll clean all the money. And so my partner had come up with the idea. The FBI had cleared it and approved it, and then I'm the one who every night has to wait in the law firm until they come because they were photocopying the money every night.
And it wasn't even that much
it
money.
Back in the morning for me to deposit.
It's like a total of $40,000. But my question is then, how can the government make a case in a situation like that where you're in a law firm and the lawyer in the law firm comes up with this idea on how to, and the guy's saying, "Oh, is that going to work?"
Well, actually, the lawyer didn't come up with it, Ed. My partner was not a lawyer.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Lawyer. Yeah, he wasn't. But on top of that, when a lawyer makes because this question absolutely came up because as things got very complicated and the charges started to get very serious, the FBI was concerned, are we going to have a problem here at trial? Because Michael's involvement could involve privilege. And so it went all the way up to Washington, and we got back a ruling that where a lawyer is knowingly participating in helping someone do a crime, no matter what his motive, no privilege attaches to that. So we were cleared to just keep going. And it didn't come up because everybody pled guilty.
Okay, it didn't come up, but I'm sure they explored that avenue. Yeah, I'm sure they explored that avenue, though. Okay, so now you get.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. Now you get down toward the end there now, and the plea agreement. What was it? The plea deal they sent you over was like 150 pages or something crazy like that.
Yeah, the plea deal in New York was 3 pages. The plea deal in Florida was 156 pages. I never understood it. I don't understand it now. I mean, whoever, why would any prosecutor give the defendants 156 pages of a plea agreement that laid out like every act that everybody ever did? I didn't know half the people they're talking about, and when I say half the people, I probably knew more than half. But I mean, I didn't know a lot of the stuff that was going on, and I didn't understand the plea at all. But it was take it or leave it. The prosecutor in Florida would absolutely have just delighted if we didn't agree to sign everything she wanted us to sign. And the stuff was really hard pills to take and came back to bite us in the ass, which I knew it would, but there was nothing we could do. We were once the New York case had been closed, once the pleas were in, once the task force was disbanded, we had trouble. And I if you could have been in the courtroom for this sentencing and seen the people from New York, the people from Manhattan, the people from Florida. I mean, you just don't see that in the sentencing of a cooperator. Because normally you walk in court and the government says, Your Honor, this is what we promised this guy, and this is what he's entitled to, and this is what he did. And the judge says, thank you very much for your cooperation. You get your deal and you leave. We got nothing. And yet all of these people, even the victim was standing up and saying, Judge, we strongly urge that these people get maximum sentencing leniency. And at times it looked like the judge wasn't even listening, like this was a pre-decided decision. And I don't understand it because this is a judge with such a wonderful reputation. So this case is an anomaly, and I will never be able to explain it.
So then when you take your plea deal, do you go straight to jail, or do they give you some time to get your affairs in order? What happens then?
No, they gave us like 72 hours or something to get ready to. We actually had to surrender before the sentencing because that was what Hunt was insisting upon from Florida. She was insisting that we immediately surrender, and so once again, in New York, we were given like 3 days to pack up and get out, and then when we were finding ourselves in the position again where someone was insisting now that we surrender, and the whole attitude was, well, surrender now, and we can get you out quicker, And after we surrendered, we're sitting in this witness jail, and one by one, we're seeing other defendants in the case who were, originally targets. They're showing up in different WITSEC jails too, because everybody's starting to cooperate. Everybody's realizing they need to turn the tide on this thing, and so there we sit, and we're starting to see everybody go home. So people pled guilty to, murder conspiracy, went home. and my partner and I, who never hurt a fly, and all the money is back, and we've done all this unbelievable cooperation in 4 states or whatever. You know, we're still there, and we still just stay there and stay there and stay there, and so after a while, it's just, you know, you just lose faith in everything.
What were the conditions like at the witness jail? Was it just like a regular jail, or was it more?
No, definitely wasn't a regular jail. I would say, I mean, I think it's deserving of a book, to tell you the truth, because I don't think anybody's ever revealed what goes on in there. But I would call it more like a bad motel than a maximum security jail. There's a lot of concern about protecting witnesses in that circumstance. But, you know, a lot of the program is now populated with state lifers who cooperate for the feds, and well, basically, it's not a terrible place. You don't feel, you know, the rooms are nice compared to, I mean, nice. You know, it's not a Marriott hotel, but it's what it is. It's a bad motel, but you're incarcerated and you're stuck. And I would wake up every morning and I would teach the GED. I must have gotten over 100 witnesses their GEDs to go home with, which you've seen these men tattooed from head to foot who killed 18 people crying at their graduation because they never dreamed it would be possible. I just had a knack for teaching the GED. And then all afternoon I would write this book. I wrote 3 books in jail. This is just the first one.
Oh, what are the other ones about?
Well, there's another one that there's one that's a fantasy book that I think blows away this first book. But everybody that I talked to when I came home only wanted to talk about the first book. Yeah. So the first book is the first. The second book that I would love to put out was, you know, people always write when they're reviewing this book that they love the little personal stories that pepper the book everywhere, that those are like the funny stories about my life.
Sure.
That just make various points. Well, I have like about, I would say, 250 pages of stories that hit the cutting room floor. So if this book gets some sizzle and gets some publicity from kind folks like you, you know, maybe people will buy it, and I can just take those stories that are already written and compiled and put that out as a second book. And in the meantime, I've already outlined, you know, the sequel to what happened, because the story ends when we surrender, and then there's just a small section at the back that you like at the end of movies, what happened to everybody. Yeah. But there's a lot more to those stories, and what happened while we were in, and what happened in the various court hearings, and you know, it's a lot of exciting stuff could be in that. And then what happened to Scores?
I was going to ask you that.
It's an amazing story of what happened to Scores left behind, with my friends now in control and me in witness land.
Right, because you made a deal where you could sell it to a friendly sale. You could make a sale to your friends.
Okay. Exactly, that was the deal. And that deal was that deal. Without that deal, I don't know if you remember. I talked about it in the book.
Yeah.
When they didn't, you know, weren't going to give us that deal, we were walking. It was over. We weren't doing all of this to go off to witness land for 9 months or a year and then come home to nothing. You know, my law license gone, everything. So, you know, the only point was, yes, we'll give up control. Yes, we'll be absentee owners, but we get to select who's going to wind up as the final owners of my baby. And they denied that to us too. And you know, the Delaware people were so against that. Now I don't think they would even object, now that they know me so well, and we've had some success together.
Well, then ultimately, what happened? Who did the sale of the club go to?
The sale of the club went to my friends that I left it to. Remember, the club was always titled in my friend Irving's name.
Okay.
And so what happened was that he and there was my other friend Harvey were in there, and another guy Richie, and those guys got the club. And then Delaware came in, and they had made so much money since my departure that they were able to meet the price that the contract specified, and even a little better. So everyone was happy. They got to be the owner of Scores, which was amazing. They the Delaware got more than they bargained for as a price for Scores, and so everybody was happy except the guy who was always unhappy.
Well, your friends couldn't hook up with a deal and give you a little side consulting contract. They just didn't want to, or they couldn't.
No, because first off, they couldn't do it while I was in witness protection, and secondly, by the time I got out, they had already sold the club at tremendous profit to a third party who I didn't know.
Okay.
And has turned out to be a wonderful friend who helped me out where he could I was able to for the potential movie. I had to get the trademark from this gentleman, and he gave it to me in exchange for the usual royalty for that sort of stuff. But I would have been in a lot of trouble if I couldn't use the name Scores. I mean, I was the original owner of the trademark, and it'd been taken from me like everything else.
Okay, but now, are you in touch? Do you ever talk to these guys who walked away with all that money from the club that you built?
Well, not really. They don't want to talk to me.
I could strangle them. Now, what about after, when all this stuff happened, Howard Stern was talking about it, he says, I don't know anything. But then they came up with a plan, and it was a guy, Lonnie, who was a manager, who was friends with Howard, who then went to another club. What's the story behind all that?
Well, he wasn't a manager. We had a publicist by the name of Lonnie who was a genius.
Right.
And once we left, he would not take phone calls, and I don't blame them. Everybody ran away from us with what was appearing in the papers, which we didn't even know about because you can't get papers in witness land. So that you can't get papers that mention you. Yeah. So, but Lonnie was an absolute genius. He was I don't know whether he knew Howard or not, but I know he knew Howard's posse, and he was the one who persuaded them to start with the parties or to consider with the parties. And I can't say enough of what a genius he is in the public relations field, but I haven't spoken to him since 1998.
Now,
when I tried to call him, he wouldn't take my calls. I'm a pariah.
All the Gambino guys, they're all out now, right?
Yes.
And what happened with John Jr.?
I never met John Jr.
No, I know, but what happened with his case?
What do you mean by whatever happened?
Yeah, whatever happened with his case. He didn't do any time, right? He cut a deal.
Well, he did. I think he did 5.5 years on this case.
Okay, all right. I wasn't familiar with that.
Where he ever did time. Yeah.
Okay. I always wondered what happened.
Long before all the hung juries.
Right.
And he took a plea, but I played no role in his plea. He's one of those guys that's filtered to me for credit without my ever interacting with him. The highest, he part of an extortion thing that went on, and I don't know what he eventually pled guilty to, but that's why he pled guilty, because all of his guys turned on him, and we're going to testify that he was at the head of that extortion incident. But I had no testimony to give against him.
Now, John Sr. was getting $1,000 a week, supposedly, but when you see those tapes of him in prison, he seems to say like he doesn't know what they're talking about.
Oh, that's all staged.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. All right.
Remember, he was calling the place Whores. What is this place Whores? I've never heard of. It was on TV. I was just laughing. He knew exactly what it was. He knew what was going on.
Now, do you have any credible threats right now from these Gambino guys, or do you think they forgot about you?
It's a very hard question to answer. On the 60 Minutes show, the Atlanta prosecutor predicted that someday they'll come get me. But you know what? My feeling is, they forced the death penalty against people who kill protected witnesses, and I'm still considered a protected witness. And I believe that could some young gun one day find out where I am or who I am and do something about it, it's a possibility. But I think that if you want to go through the rules, as I understand protocol within organized crime in this case, why they should really take care of all the people who flipped on them from their own ranks before. I'm supposed to do what I did. Right. I'm a civilian. I'm not a member. I didn't take any oaths. I was being extorted. Whether it's friendly extortion or not friendly extortion, I'm still being extorted. I'm supposed to tell. I'm not supposed to go to jail for them, the extorters. With that said,
because all these other guys flipped too, except for Sergio's son, but everyone else flipped, right? So, do any of them have been threatened or killed or anything?
All the guys that were involved with us, the captains flipped, the acting captains flipped. They all flipped. Everybody flipped. And so, what are you mad at me for?
But none of those guys got. They're all walking around, right?
They're still alive. They got lesser sentences than me. I'm the one who got punished for their deeds.
Do you know if any of those guys are still doing stuff? Because you figure a guy like Sergio, he's doing stuff his whole life. You think he went straight when he got there?
I think the elder Sergio is quite old now, and then absolutely 100% retired. And the son is absolutely out of. He was never much deep into it. I mean, I don't even know if you could have described. I guess you could describe. I don't know. He could be called an associate of some kind, but I don't believe that the son has done anything wrong since getting out of jail.
Yeah, it's true. Like the son, his whole career was just running that coat check, right?
Running the coat check and running, stealing from all the money that wasn't nailed down.
Yeah, because they got teenage girls that run coat checks. It's not much of a big mafia job.
So the father was never on the floor. It was always the son was running the club.
Right.
For them. So and he did a very successful job between the coat room and anything that wasn't nailed down to doing very well for himself. And he and I were always friends, and he's a good guy.
Hey,
and it's kind of one of those things that twist you up in these things.
Now, you owned Grandpa's Comedy Club on Newdor Plaza?
On Mulberry Street.
Oh, you didn't own the one on Staten Island. You owned the one in.
I didn't own any of them. I just was partners in other business ventures with both the elder Sergio and with Grandpa Munster. We did a bunch of business deals together, and I believe Sergio owned the club. But I was as good an owner as an owner because I was there all the time, even though the food sucked. And even though Louis was one of the nastiest people I ever met, I don't want to destroy anybody's memories of Grandpa Munster, but he was not an easy fellow to get along with in business, and very, very difficult. And I remember
the Grandpa's restaurant, the food wasn't bad. It was pretty good. It was okay. I mean,
pizza and pasta.
Yeah. And I would see Grandpa in there, and he did seem to be like, off in the corner negotiating things with people, whatever he was doing.
Always there. And one of the funniest stories, I don't even remember if I have it in the book anymore, is when people used to come in and ask for his autograph, he used to charge them like $10 because he was going to put the autograph on a menu. And so, there was the time when Sergio was saying, why am I paying thousands of dollars every month for menus? What's going on here? And then we discovered that Grandpa was just stealing the $10 off of every menu.
Incredible.
And 50 people would come in and want autographs from some bus from Japan. He would, go get a box of menus, sign it, and collect $10 a head.
Yeah, and he passed away too, right? And he passed, and all those places are closed now.
He lived at the end of his life. He was living in that island in the middle of the west side.
Roosevelt Island.
Yeah, he was living in an apartment in Roosevelt Island with his last wife.
Oh boy, I tell you, Michael, go ahead.
Sort of like therapy for me talking to you because nobody knows the story as well as you. So it's like I never get to tell anybody like the stuff you're asking me. So it's almost therapeutic.
Well, thank you. I'm going to send you a bill, but I guess But I read the book today. When I picked it up,
I was going to say my dentist is waiting to get paid. So if you send me a bill, you're going to be online.
Listen, man, I hear you. I totally hear you. And my life has kind of gone the same way, too. I need some dentist work, too. But, I picked up the book this morning.
I heard you talk about that, too. So I kind of identified when you were describing, when you made a crossover into what you're doing now.
Yeah. I picked up the book today, man. I haven't been able to put it down all day long. I missed, I think, the last couple of pages in the last chapter. But otherwise, I read the one, and I can hardly recommend it. I really can. A great read. You're a historical figure. It's going to go down in history. When they do the Howard Stern history, Scores is going to come up.
It's going to be right there with him. I mean, he is so identified with Scores, and yet he doesn't want to have any part of any of these projects. I mean, the people who were talking about the series were talking about letting him direct, some of the series or be in the series or do cameos, and we can't get answers out of him. He just doesn't want to be identified with Scores anymore, except historically.
Really?
It was very sad for me.
Yeah, that is unusual. You know, it was such a big part of his life, and he just turns his back on it, huh? A lot of people are saying that about him now, though.
Yeah, you hear it, but I mean, my memories of him are so positive and so absolutely filled with gratitude. I mean, what he did for us, and I guess for himself, because it gave direction to his show, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it at all. I believe when it started, like after a year, after 2 years, he'd get bored with Scores, or he'd bring on another club, or he'd divert his attention from our club. Yet at the same time, he never deserted us. The parties continued, the girls continued. He was always there for us. And, you know, he's not, like when he comes in the place, the first thing he would do is walk over and shake my hand and thank me for the party and tell me how much he appreciates everything. He didn't have to do that so often, but he did. I mean, he always came dressed like a pig. He was always wearing like a dirty gray sweatsuit, but his demeanor and his attitude towards us was just so wonderful. It's like you have to torture me to get me to say something bad about him. He never did anything except be a complete gentleman.
We're down to the last couple of minutes. What advice would you give to people if they had a chance to make a deal with the federal government? Would they just run the other way, or what?
You know what? It all depends on circumstance, because if you have no defense, if you're really in trouble, if you're going down, you really don't have a choice. And yet at the same time, the statistics are that, 95, 96, 97% of cooperators get their deal unless they breach the deal. In other words, if you lie under oath, if you tell a story that's not true as a cooperator, they're just going to rip up your deal, and they really will, because they don't give a shit about that. But the bottom line is, everybody gets their deal, and we are such an oddity and so bizarrely stand apart from everybody else that I mean, even the defendants in my case who flipped, they all got their deals, all of them, every single one.
Okay,
Nobody stood out.
Do you have any appearances coming up, or how can people find you on Twitter or Facebook? You do any of that kind of stuff?
Not yet. I mean, I'm not yet. I'm just trying to. The book came out, and the whole game plan for me was I got booked on like almost all these wonderful morning shows, and the TV thing was going to be there, and because the TV thing was,
I hung up on it by mistake. I was hoping I could hang up on the station there, but I lost him. I'll call him off the air and tell him what a good time I had with the show. Thank you so much, Michael Blutrich, Blutrich. Scores: How I Opened the Hottest Strip Club in New York City, was extorted out of millions by the Gambino family, and became one of the most successful mafia informants in FBI history. Really, I love the book. I got to tell you, I'll be honest with you. Okay, these people come on the show. I get books. They send me books. I never read the books. Okay, I never read these books, man. As a matter of fact, when the publishers say, "Hey, can we send you a book?" I'll say, "Yeah, send me a book," because I'm thinking in the future sometime I'm going to hold a yard sale. I'm going to send all these. I'm going to sell the books. I'll get 50 cents a book. I got boxes of these books. People, authors send me books. They don't even send me a card or nothing to say, "Hey, yeah, book me on the show." They just send me a book. So God bless them for that. I love the books, but I hardly ever read them. I read Ramsey's book, William Ramsey. But I picked up this book today, man, and I couldn't put it down. It was great information. I was really impressed. And he kind of sells himself short. This guy was involved with a really big boxing promotion and Trump and with the law firm he had was a juiced up law firm in New York. This guy is connected by the balls. But nice guy, very, very entertaining book. And it's kind of like also it's a little adventure kind of novel too. Because the way he tells the whole story about putting on these wires and going to meet with these mafia guys and stuff. And you got to understand too, this is at a time where the Gambino family was sort of like chaotic. There was chaos. The father was being put away, and the son was running things, and he was bringing on all these crazy guys, and all kind of craziness was going on all over the place. So this was a chaotic time for New York City organized crime, for this guy to be taking this kind of chance. Very, very interesting story. Now, and the book is called Scores. How I Opened the Hottest Strip Club in New York City, was extorted out of millions by the Gambino family, and became one of the most successful mafia informants in FBI history. So I really highly recommend. I'm going to publish the link all over. I like this guy. Thank you so much, Bob. Michael, bye. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or